My this Carol friend brought up something in the comments of a video, and I thought it was thought it was heavy enough to address. I must look up to who Arius' teacher was. He was educated at Antioch. I want to say Theodosius, or but either way, it's sufficiently Antiochian for that period. There is much in the church from Theodosius onward that is ugly. The Christians became violent persecutors of the pagans, which makes me somewhat skeptical of the church when it pronounces on the mysteries of God. But I don't feel brave enough to flat out argue against her on the fate of Arius. This is what I want to address because it seems disjointed. The mysteries of God were firmly established before Theodosius, long before Theodosius. And Theodosius, Christianity didn't take over the empire very quickly. It wasn't until Theodosius that you had them saying this is a Christian empire. Christianity is the official religion. And this was in reaction to... Now, keep in mind that Judaism was still legal and always had been legal in the Byzantine Empire. Even though the Jews had violent uprisings where they'd slaughter man, woman, and child, and the Samaritans would do the same. The Samaritans were legal too, but paganism wasn't. Violent persecutors of pagans, by Theodosius' time, it was the overwhelming majority of the populace was Christian. You also have to realize the Huns were the endorsers of paganism. It was until the Hun would claim that he had the sword of Mars, and this was a form of paganism that was getting juxtaposed to Christianity. Was extremely violent. Extremely violent. That's like if somebody looked back on today and said, "Oh, you know, the Muslims are harshly persecuted by the United States of America, and they were violently persecuted." Were they? Are they? Because really nobody, even in the medieval West, nobody gets persecuted for beliefs. They get persecuted for actions. And a lot of times, I mean, the Knights Templar were not pagans. The women, the men that got hanged at Salem, they weren't burnt. And most of the accusations of witchcraft were against men. There were women too, that got hanged at Salem. They weren't practicing witchcraft. Just like from here on out, from Byzantine time to, you know, the Renaissance, any heresy would be met with a charge of you're a Jew and you're an Arian and you're a heathen. Which, how can all three of those stand? So the violent persecution, who's writing these histories? Why are they writing these histories? What are they trying to convey? Who do they mean when they say pagan? When the Gospels talk about the Jews crucified Christ or anything like that, are they talking about all Jews, or are they talking about the Pharisees? They're talking about the head group, the head Pharisees. They're not saying Jesus with Mary, because she was a Jew as well, and the 12 apostles crucified Christ. No. So there's a lot of anachronistic reading back into Byzantine history, and this, I think, we should look out for. We should be on guard against. What I want to ask people, what do you know about Arius? With exception to him being recorded as a loudmouth and as bringing in a new teaching and splitting the church for a few hundred years, which he did. It was a new teaching that he brought. That was recognized by almost everyone. What I mean, when they say, "Oh, these people sided with Arius," they didn't agree with the Nicene Creed. That's what Arius was. He rejected that this could be used. So were they really endorsing Arius or not? And I have my utmost respect for my Lewis Carroll friend or my Jefferson Airplane friend, but it's kind of shocking to see this kind of emotion, and this goes between a few people I guess he's talking to or that are talking to him. And I don't know where the emotion's coming from, whether it's coming from him. I don't want to lay it on him, and I'm certainly not arguing against him, but this kind of emotion of defending people who the history around them is scant and secondary at best. And I'm not saying, oh, like the Gospels or like this or like that. I'm talking about we don't get a complex picture of them by many people writing about them. Where we get bits and pieces, and I mean, look how hard. I mean, at least with someone like Marcion, we have a bunch of people, even if they're just making side comments, talking about him. It is fairly consistent, because you got what Hippolytus, Irenaeus, Tertullian. These are very close to his time. These are about just a few years after he died. 10, 20 years after he died, they're writing. They know his disciples, and they write in length. I mean, Tertullian's main work is about, against all heresies. I think it's called. Actually, not against all. It's pretty much solely against Marcion. Goes in great detail. We don't have that about Arius. And he was in power. And who were those? I mean, we're told that Arius spurned on the persecutions. Because it was not, I mean, he was for all the exiling and all this kind of stuff. And what was he doing? He was, right after people just got done, right after the church just got done with the worst persecution it had ever suffered. Some guy coming up to change it and say, well, they really died for nothing, basically. Or those martyrs who died worshiping Christ, they actually weren't worshiping Christ, and he's basically going to manipulate history. This is very offensive to the church. It was outrageous to them. So Arius is one character. I mean, I myself have been sympathetic of him in the past. Don't get me wrong. I understand where you guys are coming from. But the more you look at it, he becomes less and less a character that can really be sympathized with in an honest way. If this was just an innocent guy who's just expressing his heart. Was he sincere in what he thought? Yeah, I think he was. He wanted power. He sincerely wanted to change the doctrines of Christianity and wanted power. Again, I don't see this as a virtue of him or something to exonerate. Alright, take it easy. Peace to you. May God save Serbia, Syria, and Ireland. And please pray for the Copts. It's well, I mean, I could go into Eusebius, but I don't think you guys are to go through all the historical stuff and all the different versions that Eusebius came out with. Alright, take it easy.